Hey everyone, welcome back to Literate Lens. I'm so glad you're here today because we're diving into a book that literally changed how I think about money, success, and life itself. This is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, and trust me, this isn't your typical finance book filled with boring charts and complicated formulas. This is about understanding why we do the crazy things we do with money, and honestly, it's going to hit different. Before we jump in, if you're new here, we break down the most powerful books into stories you can actually feel and remember. So hit that subscribe button and the bell icon because you don't want to miss what's coming. All right, let's get into it. So imagine this. It's the early 2000s and there are two guys. One guy worked as a janitor at a gas station his whole life. Never made more than minimum wage. The other guy was a high-powered executive at one of the biggest companies in America making millions. Now, if I asked you who ended up wealthier, you'd obviously say the executive, right? Wrong. The janitor, Ronald Reed, died with $8 million in the bank. The executive, Richard Fuscone, went bankrupt. How is that even possible? That's where our journey begins. Morgan Housel opens with this story because it shatters everything we think we know about money. We assume it's about how much you make, how smart you are, or what degree you have. But here's the truth that nobody wants to admit. Money is almost entirely about behavior, not knowledge. You can be a genius and still be broke. You can know nothing about finance and still become wealthy. It's not what you know, it's how you act. Think about your own life for a second. How many times have you bought something you didn't need just because you were feeling down? Or maybe you've seen someone drive a fancy car and felt this weird pressure to keep up. That's not rational, that's emotional. And that's exactly what Housel wants us to understand. We're not robots, we're humans with fears, egos, and dreams, and all of that affects how we handle money. Let me tell you about a concept that absolutely blew my mind. Housel talks about how every single person views money differently based on their own unique experiences. If you grew up during the Great Depression, you're probably terrified of losing money. If you grew up during the tech boom of the 90s, you probably think the stock market only goes up. Nobody is crazy. We're all just products of our own experiences. Your friend who spends money like there's no tomorrow isn't stupid. They just had different experiences than you did. Maybe they grew up poor and never want to feel that way again, so they spend to feel rich. Or maybe they grew up rich and never learned the value of saving. Either way, understanding this changes everything because you stop judging and start understanding. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Housel introduces this idea that completely changed my perspective on wealth. He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, that wealth is what you don't see. Think about that for a moment. The cars you see, the watches, the clothes, the vacations on Instagram, that's not wealth. That's the opposite of wealth. Wealth is the money you didn't spend. It's the car you didn't buy, the vacation you didn't take, the fancy dinner you skipped. Wealth is invisible, and that's why we're so bad at building it. We're too busy trying to look rich instead of actually becoming rich. There's this powerful moment in the book where Housel talks about his own life. He drives a modest car, lives in a nice but not extravagant house, and doesn't wear flashy clothes. And you know what? He's financially free. He can do what he wants when he wants. Meanwhile, there are people driving $100,000 cars who are one paycheck away from disaster. They look rich, but they're actually broke. That image, that facade, is costing them everything. And the saddest part, nobody even cares about their fancy stuff as much as they think. Everyone's too busy worrying about their own lives. Let me pause here and ask you something. When you see someone with an expensive car or designer clothes, how long do you actually think about them? Like honestly, maybe a few seconds, right? Then you go back to thinking about your own problems, your own goals, your own insecurities. That's the irony. We buy things to impress people, but those people barely notice because they're too busy trying to impress us. It's this exhausting cycle that leaves everyone broke and unhappy. Housel then takes us deeper into something that really resonates with young people like us. He talks about the power of compounding. Now, I know what you're thinking, boring, right? But wait, because he tells it in a way that actually makes sense. He talks about Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in the world. You know how much of Warren Buffett's wealth came after he turned 50? 97%. Think about that. He started investing as a kid, but almost all of his wealth came in the second half of his life. That's the magic of compounding. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about staying rich for a long time. Time is the most powerful force in finance, but nobody wants to wait. We all want results now. We want to post a success story on Instagram today, not in 20 years. But that impatience is exactly what keeps us from building real wealth. There's this line in the book that I'll never forget. Housel says that getting money requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But keeping money, that requires humility, fear, and frugality. It's the opposite mindset. And that's why so many people who get rich end up broke. They can't make the switch. They stay in risk-taking mode, and eventually it catches up with them. We've all seen it. The lottery winners who go bankrupt, the athletes who make millions and lose it all, they got money, but they never learned how to keep it. Now let's talk about something that hits home for everyone watching this, the concept of enough. In our world today, especially with social media, there's no such thing as enough. There's always someone richer, someone more successful, someone with more followers, more likes, more everything. And that comparison game is absolutely destroying us. Housel shares this heartbreaking story about a billionaire named Rajat Gupta. This guy had everything, money, power, respect, but he wanted more. He started insider trading to get even richer, got caught, and lost everything. His reputation, his freedom, his family's peace, all because he didn't know when to say enough. He moved the goalposts every single time he achieved something. And so many of us do that too, just on a smaller scale. We say we'll be happy when we make a certain amount of money, then we make it, and suddenly it's not enough anymore. The target keeps moving, and we're never satisfied. Here's the thing that Housel really wants us to understand. Financial success isn't about having a lot of money. It's about having enough money to do what you want when you want, with who you want for as long as you want. That's freedom. That's the goal. Not the mansion, not the private jet, just freedom. The ability to wake up and say, what do I want to do today? And actually have the choice. Most people never get there because they're too busy chasing more instead of protecting enough. Let me share another story from the book that really stuck with me. There were these two investors in the early 2000s. One was super aggressive, always taking big risks, chasing the highest returns. The other was conservative, played it safe, took smaller gains. When the market crashed in 2008, guess what happened? The aggressive investor lost almost everything. The conservative investor? Sure, they lost some money, but they survived. And because they survived, they were able to keep investing, keep compounding, and ultimately ended up way ahead. Survival is the key. You can't compound what you don't have. You can't build wealth if you blow up your account chasing quick gains. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it works. Housel also talks about luck and risk, and this part honestly made me rethink everything. He says that nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. When someone succeeds, we love to say it's because they're smart or worked hard. When someone fails, we say they're stupid or lazy. But the truth, luck and risk play a massive role, and we're terrible at acknowledging it. Bill Gates went to one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer in the 1960s. That's insane luck. But his friend who also went to that school, he died in a mountaineering accident before he could do anything with that opportunity. Same luck, different risk. We need to be humble about success and compassionate about failure because we don't know the full story. This really hit me when I thought about my own life. How many opportunities did I get just because of where I was born, who my parents were, or who I happened to meet? And how many times did things not work out, not because I did something wrong, but just because of bad timing or bad luck? Understanding this doesn't make you less ambitious. It makes you more grateful and more kind, both to yourself and others. Now, one of my favorite parts of the book is when Housel talks about reasonable versus rational. In finance, everyone talks about being rational, make the mathematically optimal decision. But Housel argues that being reasonable is better. A rational decision might be to never buy a house because renting is mathematically better in some markets. But a reasonable decision is to buy a house if it makes you happy, gives you stability, and lets you sleep better at night. Money isn't just about spreadsheets. It's about living a life you actually enjoy. What's the point of being rich if you're miserable the whole time you're building wealth? This connects to something else that's so important. Housel talks about how you should use money to buy freedom and control over your time. That's it. That's the whole point. Not to buy stuff, not to impress people, but to buy time. Time to spend with people you love. Time to work on projects you care about. Time to just exist without stress. In a world where everyone's hustling 24/7, this is revolutionary. Maybe the goal isn't to work yourself to death climbing some corporate ladder. Maybe it's to build enough wealth that you can choose how you spend your days. There's also this concept called the man in the car paradox that I absolutely love. When you see someone driving a really nice car, you might think, wow, I respect that person. But here's the twist. That person bought the car thinking people would respect them, but what you're actually thinking is, if I had that car, people would respect me. You're not thinking about them at all. You're thinking about yourself. Nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are. So stop buying things to impress people who aren't even paying attention. As we get near the end of this book, Housel shares his own rules for money, and they're so simple yet so powerful. Save money without a specific purpose. Just save, because life is uncertain and having a cushion gives you options. Don't try to impress anyone. Define success for yourself, not based on what society tells you. Be okay with a lot of things going wrong. Failure is part of the process. Use money to gain control over your time. That's the highest dividend money can pay. And finally, be nicer and less flashy. Kindness and humility will take you further than arrogance and showmanship. You know what really gets me about this book? It's not just about money. It's about life. It's about understanding yourself, your motivations, your fears, and your dreams. Money is just the tool, but the real work is internal. Why do you want money? What are you trying to prove? What would make you happy? These are the questions that matter. So, as we wrap up this summary, I want you to think about your own relationship with money. Are you chasing things that don't matter? Are you comparing yourself to people who are just as lost as you are? Are you sacrificing your freedom for things that won't make you happy? Because here's the beautiful truth that Morgan Housel wants us to understand. You don't need to be rich to be wealthy. You just need to be smart about behavior, patient with time, and honest about what enough means to you. If this summary resonated with you, if you felt something shift in how you think about money and success, then please hit that subscribe button for Literate Lens. We're building a community of people who want to learn, grow, and become the best versions of themselves through the wisdom in books. Drop a comment and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from the psychology of money. And if there's a book you want me to cover next, tell me. I read them, I digest them, and I bring them to you in a way that actually sticks. Remember, wealth isn't about what you show. It's about what you keep. It's not about looking rich. It's about being free. And that journey starts with understanding the psychology behind every decision you make. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building the life you actually want.